Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale. Ohai Gonzaimas, guten Morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan masal, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, bhalli kare aya. Hoş geldin and I osayo huya mora chi vato chi hal yud kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV Sports and are doing wonderfully well. That's what we hope and pray, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very lucky to have been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan. And ladies and gentlemen, today it's going to be a very different day because for the very first time, we will be discussing something which we have never discussed over the period of a decade. It's been 10 years that we've been doing this morning show and we have never discussed this topic. But today, the kind of conversation we're going to have is really important. And where we mentioned that, that Alhamdulillah, for the last 10 years, we've been doing this morning show and we've never discussed it. And it happens to be a rising problem because just the other day, it was on news that there was a boat which was filled up with a lot of people and God forbid, unfortunately, so there were those tidal waves and the boat couldn't really handle it and a lot of people actually got stranded and then obviously they drowned. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a story which really needs to be related to human trafficking over here, and a lot of human trafficking is taking place all over the world or all over the globe. And imagine whenever we see any industry as $1 billion or $1 trillion industry, or when we talk about human resource that which is required by other parts of the world, or people who have this intent to go to a better place so that they can live their lives easily. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not how easy it is or how it looks. There might be a lot of vulnerable segments of the society who are very vulnerable towards human trafficking, and then at the same time, while we are talking about it, what we really need to do is that we really need to address the elephant in the room.
That's true.
And imagine that human trafficking has been taking place, but rather I think what we really need to say is that it is against the will of the people who are being trafficked, which is why we call it or refer to it as human trafficking, Haja. And we really need to know what types of different human trafficking are actually taking place, and to kind of have a better understanding. We have experts over here in the studio who've traveled most of the parts of the country, and not just the country, the world as well, and they will refer to what spatial mapping is, or how cryptocurrency can actually contribute towards it, or how image geolocation can contribute towards it, or how our social media platforms can actually kind of end us or put us in trouble. So ladies and gentlemen, to talk about it, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who first of all happens to be a former federal agent and prosecutor, founder of the National Child Protection Task Force. He's that one gentleman who gets all of these experts on board as well, who are good with legal strategy, geospatial mapping, dark web, cryptocurrency, image geolocation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Mr. Kevin Metcalf. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Doing well, thank you for having me here.
And thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here amongst us to speak about such a subject which I believe happens to be a menace for a lot of people and a lot of lives.
It is worldwide.
It is indeed.
And joining Mr. Metcalf, we have Syed Kausar Abbas, who happens to be ex-director, Sustainable Social Development Organization. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Saab, for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. So the first question, obviously, Haja, happens to be, how many types of trafficking exist in this world?
Thank you very much, Shahzad, for taking out this issue on your show. Basically, trafficking, when we talk about the trafficking in person is basically two kinds of trafficking. One is the internal trafficking that is happening within the border of Pakistan. Like from Karachi to Lahore, from Lahore to Karachi, even within the city.
Do we refer to it as trafficking?
Yeah.
Do we refer to it as trafficking?
Yes, this is a trafficking because basically if somebody is trapping somebody to bring them for a job, for any, to give any opportunity.
Without their will?
Yeah, with their will as well. With or without their will. If they are bringing them to Islamabad or any city and asking them, okay, we'll be giving you the job or we'll be providing you any opportunity. Especially the women are the most vulnerable, because the women, they are called from the different cities and then they are engaged in the commercial sex activities, in the prostitution activities, in the brothel houses, in the massage centers, and the children, they are basically engaged in the bonded labor, in the child labor issues. Similarly, it happens with the men. Similarly, it happens with the transgenders. In the different issues, basically they are used. The when we talk about the the kind of trafficking, that what kind of trafficking they or what kind of exploitation they made with the victims, but it can be a commercial sex or a prostitution, it can be a bonded labor, it can be a debt bondage. They give debts to the different people and then they engage them. Okay, you have to work with me for
Children begging on
1
every
year.
street light.
Children beggary is a biggest industry in every signal. You see so many people, and they all are basically affiliated with some gangs who are basically running them. Similarly, debt bondage, and the other thing is the child soldiers. When we refer it to the terrorism, the terrorism which was occurred in Pakistan, so many times we faced. That is also the people basically trap the children, take them to their places, brainwash them, and then they send them for the child terrorism and these kind of activities. The other thing is Pakistan, internationally, US State Department published its report to rank different countries on the issues of trafficking in persons. Unfortunately, Pakistan was in the tier 2 watch list for the 5 times. Like FATF, we were in the grey list. Similarly, we were in the tier 2 watch list for the 5 times. But in 2018, Pakistan made a significant progress on this issue. Pakistan made 2 separate laws. One on the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act 2018, and the other one was Smuggling of Migrants Act 2018. When we refer to the cross-border, and the will is also included in that okay, I want to go abroad for a better future. When a travel agent takes me, like it happened to Italy, it happened to Turkey last year as well. This is called migrant smuggling. They go by their will from one country to another country. They can be further trapped and trafficked for the exploitation, for the bonded labor, for commercial sex or anything. So Pakistan made this progress in 2018, and in 2018 Pakistan ranking was improved.
Wow.
But in 2020,
but were we still in the tier 2 observatory?
in 2020 till 2020 we couldn't implement that law, unfortunately. Then again we were ranked as a tier 2 watch list, and in the recent report in 2022, the July report, Pakistan's ranking is improved back to tier 2 list. We are still not in the normal list. We are in the tier 2. From tier 2 watch list, we are now in the tier 2 list. But we are trying the purpose. We also organized a huge conference for the 2 days, gathered all the stakeholders from across Pakistan in Islamabad for the 2 days to make a way forward and a strategy that how can we address this issue. The purpose is because Pakistan's next report is due in the next month, and we actually want that Pakistan's status should be improved to a normal status in the upcoming report.
Okay.
Right. So I think I really want to apologize because I mispronounced the designation of Saeed Kausar Saab. He happens to be Executive Director, Sustainable Social Development Organization. I apologize for that.
No, I fixed it there and then.
Yes. So Shahzad, we've seen, I don't know if you have the opportunity to watch the movie called Swimmers. It has been on the Netflix, and it's a very popular movie, and it actually describes the journey of 2 or 3 persons who travel through Syria, and because Syria is a war-trapped country, and they go to the Italy to participate in the, I think it's Italy, I'm not sure about which particular country, in the Olympic Games. And this is the journey of how actually a lot of migrants or the people who are escaping poverty or different sort of social ills, or maybe the civil war in their countries, they're actually traveling, and through these illegal human traffickers who happens to be, and they, what they do is that they make sure that there are a lot of people on the one particular boat, and then the boat capsizes, and then we see a human tragedy unfolding before our eyes in Mediterranean and a lot of other these seas or the coastal areas that
hence
they
the
take.
name Swimmers.
Yes, hence the name Swimmers. No, they're very good swimmers, and they win that Olympic medal. That is why that's the name Swimmer. So I want to ask Mr. Metcalf about what exactly are the international conventions which curb this menace, because we see that there's an entire human tragedy which is unfolding before our eyes, and especially regarding the human migration, the illegal migration.
Well, that's very complex. So human trafficking in the U.S., and I can speak mainly from that perspective, we implemented our human trafficking laws about 20 years ago, and we're still struggling with how to address a lot of this. So Pakistan, 2018, you're still pretty new relatively to this, but after this conference, it's amazing. Brought all these stakeholders together. You're doing things right, and you're learning from our mistakes that we have made, and that's very important.
Wonderful.
So when you're looking at cross-border or internal trafficking, it really depends on the location. So each place is very unique. Here in Pakistan, you've got different cross-border issues than the U.S. or than Canada or Dominican Republic or Colombia or some of the other places I've been. So each place kind of has its own unique challenges, its own unique culture. But I want to point out the main thing here is building awareness. Because I still remember in the U.S. when we were pushing out media on human trafficking, and there's always this confusion of smuggling versus trafficking, and it's not the same thing. But people don't think of trafficking in that way. So it's important here that we understand that at a very basic level, what is happening are people are making billions of dollars off the suffering of our most vulnerable people in our communities.
True.
So whether there are people that are being promised as brides to go to other countries or promised jobs, and we see this a lot, they're promised something. Say, come over here, and we've got something for you, got a better life for you over here. And then when they arrive, they take their documents, take their passports, and then they're trafficked. They are put into sex, labor trafficking, they're made to beg, they're made to do something, and to bring all this money in.
And thank you so much for pointing out about this point, that how the vulnerable people, they are made being fodder for multi-billion-dollar industry that is thriving. And certainly Pakistan is a very fertile ground, because a lot of people from Afghanistan, they are escaping the conditions in their country. And they take this route from Pakistan then to Iran, and then they want to escape to the Europe via Turkey or any other country that they can find. And in the way they suffer so many vulnerabilities. But where does the concept of the dark web comes into this equation of this entire debate on the human migration, or the illegal human migration and trafficking?
Okay, so to understand the dark web, you have what's generally, if you're familiar with Google searches, that's known as the clear web.
Yes.
So if I want to go to do a search on something, Amazon, or search for something for sale, I'm going to go on the clear web. The dark web is much harder to navigate. And we don't really see as much human trafficking on the dark web because it's more difficult. What we do see is what is done on the clear web, and then they're using ways to hide themselves there. What happens on the dark web, and that is happening here in Pakistan, it's happening everywhere, is sexual or child exploitation.
True.
So it's basically the rape of children, and it's done within the home. It's done with somebody within that child's circle of trust. They create videos and imagery. That is a commodity in and of itself, and that's primarily the use of the dark web, or where you're wanting to buy fraudulent documents, you're wanting to buy something. So human trafficking, though, if you consider human trafficking as, I have somebody, I'm going to sell them over and over. If I have drugs, I can only sell that once.
True.
But if I have a person, I can sell them over and over and over, and that's where all this money and this value comes in. That has to be advertised in a place where most people can find it easily. So you're going to see more of that on a clear web with other, but they have other mechanisms to protect themselves on that.
Exactly. And you certainly happen to be a former federal agent yourself, so you might have come across these thought processes as well, where all of a sudden I think of, capturing those people who actually serve this industry rather than kind of getting after people who are being trafficked illegally or against their will. But there has to be a thin line in between where people willingly going to migrate, whether they have the visa for that particular country or not, or unwillingly. I think that we really need to draw the line over here, that whether, people who willingly are going to go to another country for bonded labor or for whatsoever, and then do you think that we need to refer to it as trafficking as well? Because the country might not even know that this gentleman might have the visa or not, but he or she was willing to go there by themselves. Do we still refer to it as trafficking?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
So this is, again, going back to the U.S. when this was first implemented, this is something we struggled with, and there's still a struggle, that these women primarily, there are also boys, men, but these women and children primarily, they were coerced. So there's something known as the Romeo scam, where there's a romance that develops, especially if you get, there's very vulnerable people, low self-esteem, low socioeconomic status, and there's this romance that blooms, and they lure them away. So they go willingly,
Yeah.
but the person that's luring them away isn't really bringing them in for romance and for a relationship. To bring them in to then traffic them, they get them started on drugs. So addiction is a big control mechanism. So they've figured out ways. Have you seen the movie Taken? You mentioned
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yes,
I have.
Yes, yes.
That's
All
what
3 parts, yes.
everybody thinks. They think that trafficking starts with a van pulling up in a parking lot and
Yeah, getting
snatching
people
somebody.
in. Yeah.
Yes.
But all that does, and again, speaking from the U.S., if you do that in the U.S., you're going to have the FBI, the National Guard, helicopters, you're going to have everything out. And the criminals don't want that. They want to remain hidden. So, my focus is in technology, and technology is used to groom children especially, to groom them to run away. So most of society thinks a runaway, put the blame on them. It's their fault they ran away.
True.
But when they run away, that removes law enforcement from the equation. Then you have a predator, a trafficker with control over all these people. Then you have organized retail crime. I'll send them out to commit crimes, shoplifting, fraud, different things. So I'll send them out, and I have this buffer. If anybody
Yeah.
gets arrested, it's them.
Yeah,
It's
true.
not coming back to me.
Because they are the ones who are actually committing the real crime, so,
Yes.
it's not them. So they're at the back end of it.
Yes.
But now let's talk about, because when we speak about the United States of America, we do know it's one of the most developed countries, and they've made sure that they're going to bring in newer technologies and whatnot. So obviously, when we speak about or probably respectively about Pakistan, the socioeconomic culture is not that amazing of how it might probably be in USA, because for a person who's probably working at McDonald's can still have a great livelihood. So people over here have different reasons of going legally or illegally, because they certainly want to support their family system. What do you think are the major causes in USA of such crimes taking place?
Well, as we're again focusing on human trafficking, missing children.
Yeah.
One of the questions I asked during the conference was, how many children are missing? And in the U.S., we like to refer to them as missing or runaways or foster care or tribal children, but essentially you have to really shift your way of thinking that children, you have 2 choices. They're either with a parent or guardian, with a responsible caregiver, or they're not.
True.
And if they're not, then they're missing. And where are they? So in the U.S., we have found that there are a lot of children who are in foster care, supposed to be in foster care, that are unaccounted for.
Okay.
And again, in the U.S., developed country, we're just now dealing with that. And it is just now coming into our awareness that there's a large portion of our next generation that we don't know where they are. We don't know how they're growing up. We don't know their moral or
and
what's
where our
going on.
future lies now.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's our future. That's our next generation.
And that can be a national security threat too, God forbid.
I
Can
think
be,
that we
yes.
also suffer the same in Pakistan, because there are a lot of runaway children in Pakistan also, and especially how we talked about that there's very flourishing businesses, especially on the chalked or the clogged arteries, that how the begging is thriving there. Coming back to Kausa, so before we wrap up this segment, what are some of the solutions that you came across in these conferences about tackling this menace?
Well, basically, it's not a one department's job or a one-man job to tackle this issue, because it's everywhere in Pakistan. So there is a need to develop a kind of inter-departmental coordination mechanism. That's
Okay.
why we gathered every department here. And the other important thing is that especially there is a need to educate the people of Pakistan that if anyone is facing this issue, the internal trafficking is linked with the Pakistani police now.
Okay.
They have to report to police, not to FIA.
Okay.
There is a confusion that everyone, when we talk about the trafficking, even FIA and police says this is the mandate of FIA, this mandate of
And because we are
The
on
law-
national television, do you think that people really need to trust police with that? Now, I think we really
Just
need
it's
to
the
be honest with it.
responsibility
Yeah.
of police, and now police has started proactive approach on this,
Okay,
because
wonderful.
Pakistan's report is due. So there are trafficking in combating trafficking in persons committees, which is
Okay.
led by Ministry of Interior at national level,
Wonderful.
Ministry of Home at the provincial level, and every district there is a committee which is led by a deputy commissioner.
Wow.
So these committees needs to be strengthened, and the people needs to play their role to report such cases, and the training and the capacity building of the investigation officers, the police, local departments, that is very important, because when the police will be trained and they have the capacity and understanding that that how we need to address this issue, then obviously that will be.
And we really need to have a very holistic approach over here as well, because imagine that we do have these new smart cities where we have these cameras in place, and we can utilize all of that. And where do you think Pakistan will be when the next month the report will be released? Do you think that Pakistan will be doing
we
better?
are hoping that since till 2021 the reporting under that law was not up to mark, in 2022 Pakistan ranking is improved, and inshallah since everyone has started talking about this, the stakeholders are making the plans to combat this issue, so hopefully in the upcoming report Pakistan ranking will be improved, inshallah. And the other important thing is the conviction is still a big question on this, because the law clearly says in case of children and women the punishment is 10 years of imprisonment and 1 million fine. But till now we don't have any such kind of case that can be referred. So I request the judiciary of Pakistan to take proactive approach on this. We have started conducting the trainings of judiciary, not the trainings, it's a
be careful,
capacity building sessions of the, of the
thank you so much.
And we as a civil society are providing support to every institution of Pakistan to combat this issue and to
wonderful. We love this initiative, and thank God that we're on this front as well. And very quickly, before we wrap up, thank you so much, Mr. Metcalf, for being with us.
Thank you so
and
much.
Thank you so much for assuring to me that that's how former federal agents would look like, because we used to watch movies and whatnot, and it would be a gentleman as macho as you are. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
for
assuring me of my childhood stories. Thank you so much once again, Costa
so
Saab as well, and for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's a menace which we really need to combat against, and that too collectively. Each and every department needs to work in day in, day out to make sure that we know where our future generations are headed. Good morning. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back. Thank you so much.